of what is going to come out. But you see, on a general note, I'm not taken in by this conference mania. I am not one of those people crazy about it. The reason is this. I told you the last time I came, sometime last year when I came here, that I have been an ardent follower of those who argue for this conference. Such that I had to invite myself to a national summit that they had sometime in Sheraton. I wasn't invited. I wanted to be educated with regard to what they are thinking about. What is this whole idea of this national conference? Sovereign national conference, which they are talking about. And let me lay this matter to rest. You can't be talking about a sovereign national conference when there is a sovereign around.
Sovereign around?
Yes. Sovereignty is not a Nigerian word. It is buried in philosophy, political science, sociology, and in law. And when you look at the philosophers from Plato to Socrates, not in any order, to Rousseau, to Thomas Hobbes, to Max Weber, to Karl Marx, all of them are all agreed that sovereignty is that inherent capacity of the society to govern itself. But through social contracts, mark my word, because some people have misinformed, either mischievously or they do not know. Through the process of, through the theory of social contract, the society confers, transmits, willingly, this sovereignty to the government.
Some lawyers say we donate part of it to the government.
That's
not all.
Now, I will address that point. You see, when you confer this sovereignty to the sovereign, another word for sovereign is government. Another word for government is sovereign. If you look at it in the dictionary, it either tells you that it's a crown or king. That's what sovereign is all about. So people should stop deceiving the public with regard to sovereignty as giving part of it. Let me give you an illustration why you cannot give part of the sovereignty.
Okay.
Like they say in law, the property in a title passes on when you confer, when you transmit that title to the other person.
Because that's done wholly.
Yes. The property in the sovereignty moves once there's a government in place. If for any reason a community catches an armed robber red-handed and they burn him alive, that community is in trouble. The reason is that they no longer have the capacity to determine who is an armed robber and who is not. They are not taking laws into their hands because there is a sovereign in place. So it's not like they have 5% of it to be able to do one or two things. They must do things according to what the sovereign says.
But some people have argued that what you're referring to is absolute monarchy, which is different from a democracy.
No, it's not. You see, we cannot be talking about monarchy when, for instance, the Nigerian case, when there is a judiciary, when there is a legislature, and there is an executive. So monarchy does not come in. But what we are now talking about, government. But if it also applies in monarchies. That's why I said, if you look it up in the dictionary, you may find out that another word for sovereign may be king or the crown. But in our own case, it is the government.
Now let's quickly let's address this issue. So assuming everybody takes with you that sovereign will mean the government, and we've already donated all of our sovereignty. I realize that
not part of it.
Not part
because the only time you can recall it when there is anarchy, like the Arab Spring or whatever, then there's no more government. Let me make this word. Let me make this point. Sovereignty belongs to the people, but it resides in the government.
Okay, so it belongs to the people but resides in the government. So assuming we wanted to write for ourselves a new constitution, who shall we give that task to? The government or the people?
Good. And that's part of why I have always argued that this conference can only be sovereign to the extent that the sovereign is convoking it.
Who is the sovereign in this case?
The government.
Who is already...
but even though it has been challenged that it should not be Jonathan that should be convening a conference. But that is why in the absence of the government, who else can convene it?
But part of the question she
asked,
that's a confusion. Some lawyers also think, taking it up from where she asks, is that the reason why, according to the Constitution, the National Assembly cannot come up with a new constitution. They can only alter.
Good.
And so, if you have to come up with a new constitution, the people have got to do it.
Chamberlain, it depends on what you call a new constitution. The Constitution allows itself to be altered through a particular procedure.
The National Assembly can do that.
It is limitless. I tell you, you note this point. It is limitless.
How?
There is no part of the Constitution that the National Assembly cannot alter.
But not the whole. You can't, can you alter
the argument now is that
document?
if you now begin to alter parts of the constitution and you end up altering all of it, haven't you gotten a new constitution?
Well, the second part is this.
The another point is that as it stands now, there is a bill that is in place that will empower the National Assembly to give us a new constitution.
They say that that will be wrong because you'll be taking the responsibility of the people. Explain to us, I mean, Section 14, subsection 2, paragraph A says, sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom government, through this constitution, derives all its powers and authority.
That's the point I've made.
He says that, look.
It belongs to the people. I've never denied that.
That's what some people say, look, but you only give some part of it. You don't give the entire
It does not come part. It is whole and entire.
So what is a plebiscite? I mean, if you were to hold a plebiscite, how does that work?
Well, the plebiscite is just like the National Assembly or the politicians having to go back to the people to renew their mandate. At all points in time, like in 4 years, they go back to, like I told you, the people have reversionary possession. It's just like you are a landlord and somebody is your tenant. The tenant is in possession of that property, but reversionary possession lies with you. So the reversionary possession lies with the people, and that is why people will go back to, politicians will go back to the people to say, vote me in. And that is where that plebiscite comes. It has to come from the people. But let's go beyond that, so that, because very soon now you'll be thanking me for coming. So let's talk about the content analysis of what gave rise to this constitution, what the other people are agitating. I told you that I'm not taken in by them and by the argument. And I have found out that it started with all the people who talk about 1914, that the amalgamation was wrong. Indeed, that it was a fraud. Lord Lugard had put communities, nations, now almost every clan calls itself a nation. Nations that have nothing in common. And I'm saying these emergency historians have gotten it wrong, in the sense that even the nations they talked about before colonialism, they all had relationships. It may have been a relationship through trade, or it may have been a belligerent relationship through wars.
Yeah, I think
but relationship existed.
Yeah, but sorry to interrupt you there. Some people say that, yes, there were relationships. The difference between that amalgamation was that we were not even consulted. It was not done on our terms. The relationship that you're talking about between these communities was on their own terms. They agreed to it. So they're simply saying, let us, we've said we want to be one. The question is, on what terms?
Good. You see, but what they have failed to understand is that every nation, I will go beyond that, every nation is either a product of amalgamation, annexation, conquest, migration. In short, it's just because we don't have time. I would have been able to tell you maybe the relationship between China and Taiwan, in America, migration, the kind of ethnic groups that eventually came together, in United
people
Kingdom.
Seeking the terms upon which they wish to coexist.
No. You see, what I quarrel with is that the difference among us has been so magnified, such that it is almost like every ethnic group is strange to each other. And I can assure you, the ethnic scar that this conference is going to leave us with is going to take long before it can heal.
Some people say that only exists in the world of politics. That if you come down to the nitty-gritty of how Nigerians have coexisted, we have intermarried, even as it stands currently. We are still intermarrying. We're still living in different parts of the country, regardless of where we're from. It's just that, there's still suspicions which always manifest and which politicians always play upon when the time for politicking comes around.
You have just made the point. It exists in the world of politics. Even the conference itself is politics. Even though it has been given a garb of what the people want. If I can assure you that it's not up to 500,000 people that have been talking about this conference. No matter how brilliant you are, with all your education, you are going to find it difficult. You are going to use a lot of econometrics to connect a conference that is holding, a sovereign national conference, so to speak, that is holding in Abuja, and the woman who is selling her fish in Sura market. You cannot make a nexus. It is purely politics.
Because we were talking about that yesterday
It's politics.
with our guest.
And it is important we know it that way.
Who is a member, sorry to butt in, who is a member of the Grassroots Watch, and we wanted to find out how the grassroots people